Okay, how do you manage more than one business with with the limited time that a person has?
Good people, good staff. I'll tell you what, Levi, it's there's something to say about listening to staff and their ideas.
Yeah.
And just having incredible staff, and not only that, an incredible spouse. Family was huge in this, and I know my wife, she knew the drive that I had for business, and so respected and was always behind me 1,000%, because there's many birthday parties and evening events and stuff if I was hopping in a limo and I was called to go out to Kelowna, for example, and that was one in particular I remember. And, I missed this important event, but you need to do what you need to do to support a family.
Yeah, I kind of more or less wanted to start with one aspect, which was because I think you told me this a long time ago. I can't remember if it was your mom or your dad now, but if I recall correctly, you told me a story about kind of a pivotal moment of like your mom or your dad's support, and just kind of how like that guided you. And I don't know if that was just entrepreneurially or through your political journey, but like,
Oh my gosh!
Can you kind of speak to?
And be very honest, both of them were absolutely my biggest cheerleaders. There was never a time, and you're growing up, you do some pretty crazy things. Let's be honest. I mean, I'll tell you what, if they had the cell phones back in the day and the videos, I mean, let's face it, right? So I mean, the videos, the pictures, but no, they were incredible cheerleaders. If anything, if it was through sports, if it was through decisions that I made, a lot of times they'd let me do the decisions when they knew that maybe they weren't the best decisions, but you would learn from them. And so, they were always there to support me, to help me when I needed the help. And great cheerleaders for sure.
Because I remember, and forgive me if I'm like misquoting you, but I felt like there was like a pivotal story you had with, I think it was your mom that you shared with me at one point, of just like exactly what you're saying, that she let you kind of experiment and just really had your back. Was there like was there like a real moment that you recall? Well, that I was like, okay.
Two that clicked in, and one, and I think that you're talking about that we had chatted before, was so when I first, got into any type of a leadership thing. So if it was in high school, being a class president or whatever, I always had that support of my dad. So when it came down to, my dad passed away when I was 22. And, at that time it was a tragic passing. So it's not something that you're prepared for. Yeah. However, when I went into politics, and I had a lot of folks that had reached out and said, hey, we need a business voice, on council. Right. And I'm like, it's the last thing I want to do. And then, however, when I was younger, I did a lot of those types of things, advocacy stuff. And so I ran, and I think I mentioned this before, that the first time I ran, I wasn't successful. I was right on the cusp, but didn't make it. Yeah. And then I ran a second time 3 years later when it was 3-year terms, and wasn't successful a second time. But my dad had always made the comment, and it was, and I remember it as all the time. It's something that really stuck in my head. He says, if first you don't succeed, try and try again. Yeah. I'm like, okay, at what point? And it's like business. And I think back to business this way too, is when I got into business, you've got to keep going. I mean, you're going to, and I don't call it a failure when it's a learning experience, right? Like, what can I do better to change? What's the community looking for? If I want to get into politics, what is it that I need to do to represent the community? And as a whole, not just those that are maybe supportive or the ones that voted for me, but the community as a whole, because you know what, you're a councillor, you're a mayor, you're a leader for the whole community, not just to those that may have checked the box.
Not just the base,
right? And so, and the third time, so I thought, my gosh, do I do this again? And that always stuck in my head. And so I ran a third time, and obviously was elected, and thanks to the community for having their support in me. And then another time after that.
Was that 2013?
That was 2013. 2013. Yeah, and then 2017.
So you ran twice before 2013.
Twice before that, on the 3, and they were on 3-year terms at that time. And so then ran a second time, and it was the support was there again, which I was very grateful for. And then after that, I'm kind of a person that, you know, I don't want to get really long in the tooth.
Yeah.
However, there's something to say about that of being importance too, of having a knowledge and a background to how things go within council. But I thought, you know, I'd do a couple terms, and then if I decide to run for mayor or for some other political thing, if it's MLA or MP or something along that line. And so I tried out the mayor thing, and honestly, and I know I'm going to give a shout out, and I'm going to make you blush a little bit here, but it's the work that your team here, did to help me, and it was, but it's a business thing as well, right? So it's, as a business, you really focused and you got everyone around an idea because it was something that I knew you were very good at.
It's just fun.
Oh, come on! I know you're gonna be. It's like, come on! You got to take that credit where credit's due. And no, honestly, it's great. And your business, the model that you had is you didn't take the foot off the gas pedal. So I liken that to any business out there.
Yeah.
Don't take your foot off the gas pedal. You know what? There's going to be the down times, and we were talking just before we started here of some struggles of COVID and what it did to my business. And really, you got to keep that foot on the gas pedal and don't get discouraged and keep going.
Yeah, and as crazy as that time was for some businesses, more than others, gyms, restaurants, a lot of those industries suffered tremendously. But a lot of like the lessons that were learned.
Oh yeah.
The technology shifts. So
technology. Let's talk about that for a second, because this is really interesting. Yeah. So before I had asked, I says, is there a way that we could? I'm kind of a techie guy, so going way back, I said, is there a way, if we can't be there in person, is there a way that we could, somehow through technology be able to? And Zoom and stuff was very in its infancy back then, right? Yeah. And we had to kick into high gear. And I was like, okay, well, investigate this. It's going to take 2 to 3 years before we get a study back and this and that. Well, COVID hit, and within 2 months, we were streaming.
Yep.
Because you had to do that for safety reasons. And so it's really interesting when you need to do something, how quick you can get it done. And now you look at Teams and Zoom and any of these channels that you could be anywhere. So technology has completely reinvented, I think, business. And,
I think so too.
Yeah, you could be wherever and work in a lot of things. I mean, you can't drive a bus, I guess, from remotely, but there's a lot of people that are working from home and stuff because that was something that they saw they were able to do.
Yeah, even for meetings though, just like commuting, whatever, like saving that time to not have to travel and just say, hey, let's just jump on a quick video call and.
Oh, absolutely.
And have that conversation. And
I do it
the details.
all the time. And you know what? And this sometimes, it's to its detriment because it'll be, okay, your meeting ends at, say, 11 o'clock, and at 11 o'clock, the next meeting starts. Well, with Teams and stuff, you can do that. You close off one, you go into another. Yeah. And so sometimes you get booked a lot busier.
Yes.
Because you're not, finishing up, getting in the vehicle, going to this next destination, the next meeting or whatever. However, it's really been able to connect people. However, the flip side, I love sitting and seeing a person. Like in a room, if you can, that's my favorite, is to be able to sit and, you look around and just body language, it's just different, right?
It's a vibe. You get the energy, you can feel someone in a different way.
Absolutely.
Or connect with someone in a different way. Yeah. I agree. I'm a handshake guy too.
Yeah.
So I like that personability, that touch. Maybe it's from the Latin side of me.
Yeah. Well, it's a handshake and a hug. I'm a huggy person. Sometimes I might get a little nervous. I was like, okay, I'm getting a hug. I like hugs. And I'm out there at quite a few events with our chief of police, Medizade, and Shaheen is just the most loving man you'll ever meet on the planet, right? And everyone. He's a hug. There's no shake. It's a hug for everyone. And,
nice.
And you know what? Maybe we have to bring more of that back because it's something that some people might be a little confrontational. Like, oh my gosh, he's coming in for a hug. But it's just the world is different. COVID changed the world in a lot of ways for sure.
Well, I just mean from like the Latino side of me.
Oh yeah, it's a hug all the time.
Handshake,
right?
Like even anytime you'd meet someone. I mean, different in like Argentina, I think, and some other spaces where it's still more male also male oriented, but like
Yeah.
the kiss on the cheek when you meet someone.
The side to side. I got to Brazil the first time. So I
Yeah.
went and I lived there for a couple of years. I think I told you this. And when I was living in Sao Paulo, I was I had just arrived there. So, you know, you're coming from Canada and it's different. The handshake or a hi. And they're very, I mean, we're incredible people. We're very loving people. We're nice people. But it took me by surprise when the first person comes in for
like,
the kiss on one cheek, and then you know how they kind of, and I'm like, whoa, and you hear about it, but you didn't until you're actually right there going, all right, and it doesn't, you know, it's just it shows, you know, I don't know, it's a care, I just think that people need to maybe go back to some of those basics of just being caring and just, you know, respect.
To me, maybe it's the wrong word to use.
Yeah.
Maybe you can help me define the word better, but like not intimacy in that kind of way, but
Absolutely
like,
not.
It brings like a sense of like togetherness. Because you're closer,
Kindness,
right? You're having that
consideration.
hug moment.
Yeah.
It shows that there's like that you're removing boundaries in a way. And you're opening yourself up to like this person, this conversation, whatever it's going to be, right?
Oh, any type of conversation, like let's face it, I'll be walking downtown and you know, you come across as someone that is maybe struggling with addictions.
Yeah.
And it's just the time to stop and talk to this person, and they look and you go, like everyone would walk by and turn up that nose. And I mean, there's frustration. Don't get me wrong. I get frustrated as well with some of the things that are happening. However, you give someone the time, and it's amazing what, you know, just how that could change their lives in one small moment, and just show some compassion. And so that connection, I think, and you say that right. It's kindness, it's compassion, it's just showing respect. I don't know. There's got to be a word.
Yeah.
We'll find the words
just
for
being
it.
polite.
It's being polite. No, absolutely.
It's being polite. Like I got to see a lot of that in Central America, right?
Right.
Like from the poverty side, maybe less from the addiction side, but at the time anyway, but more from poverty, right? And it was never a like put your nose up.
No.
It was always a respectful engagement. Even if you weren't going to participate, it was no, thank you, right? If they were asking for something, or no, I don't have any change today. So I grew up around that, and
absolutely.
a lot of that doesn't then faze me, just because I saw it, like I saw it all the time, right? So it wasn't like crazy; it was everywhere. Where here, I feel like it's a little bit newer. That being said, obviously the addiction side adds like a totally different layer to it, but
absolutely.
But overall, like just being polite and saying, you know, have a good day, and you know, I don't think anybody's out there to try and be a jerk. All things considered.
You know, you think about just what kindness can do in this world, and we've gotten to the point, I think, and me personally speaking, it's just you're here or you're here, and I don't care if it's right or left, if it's this or that. It's views are so blatant, one side or the other, and you know, I remember back in the day, and it was we had on the east side of Lethbridge, we had a liberal MLA, and in the west we had a conservative MLA.
Okay,
and these two would travel to Edmonton together for meetings. Think about that for a second, Levi. Like this, because you know what, you could share in some of the. I mean, it's just the respect, and you may what we agree on. I think there's more that you agree on than what you disagree on, but we focus so much on the things we disagree on, rather than all of the good, positive things that we all want. For example, everyone that runs for council or runs for mayor wants the community to be better. You wouldn't be there if you weren't. It's just a common thing. However, how you get there might be a little different, but you both still want the best for the community. And so we just need to I think, take a step back and listen to everybody's opinions and everybody's suggestions and thoughts and concerns, and not just stop there, but really, you know, get in a room and sit down and have these tough conversations. They're not easy.
No, but I assimilated it to removing the hype.
Oh, yeah.
To me, like, a lot of just political politically charged conversations,
Yeah.
whether with a politician or whether just at the dinner
Any leadership
table.
level. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, they tend to have a sense of hype to them, like that you have to like hype something up, whatever side you're on an idea. And I'd love to see that go back to less hype and more just conversation and meeting of the minds, because I kind of attribute it to, like, when you go to and I'm sure you've been to lots, right? You go to one of those like motivational business seminars, right?
You walk out of there and you're on top of the world, right?
And you feel like so energetic, but it doesn't mean that everything that you saw there is like 100% the truth for you. It doesn't mean you have to agree with everything that speaker said. You may have come up with one morsel of like a little tiny piece of that, 2-hour presentation, and that was enough for you to be excited about. And so kind of relating that back to kind of like the politically charged environment when people discuss, their ideas on politics, it's like, that's what it is. It's like, you may not agree with 99% of someone's point of view, but there might be that 1% that's like, hey, if I just did that, that can change like the whole spectrum, and just listening to it, right? And not getting angry or upset. It's just having a conversation.
Because you think about these motivational things, and I absolutely love to go to them, right? and you walk out and you're on top of the world, but think about how quick that gets quashed when you're maybe, you could be 100 yards away from the event and you see someone frustrated and angry about something, and it just almost brings down your drive, and you want to go out and you're going to save the world in 15 minutes, right? You've got the answer to world hunger. You're going full on, and if we can just focus on that, or focus on the 1% you say, or probably the 99% that you probably agree on, and the 1% you don't. We need to be better that way. Yeah. And it's in all of us. I'm not pointing at anybody in particular. I think it's just society in general it's tough because we're always going a million miles an hour. If you go back to 60s, 70s, and even to the 80s, there's a lot more time, I think, for families too. And now it's tough. You might have to have 2 jobs. Mom has 2 jobs. Dad has 2 jobs. And it's tough to be able to support a family. And so the time that you get to spend with the family is less because of work. And I think that probably plays into maybe some of the social issues we may have. And I don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but I still think that time to sit around that dinner table, if you will, and sit and talk with your family. And if it's not a dinner table, if it's at work, chatting with friends in the coffee room or whatever, and sitting down and really having those conversations, which sometimes are tough conversations.
Oh, totally.
Get them on the table, right? Yeah. Talk about them.
Well, I want to go back. So what was the first business you started? Because you're you're a bit of a serial entrepreneur, right? Like,
well, I got back from São Paulo, and within about 6 months, I started this business. It was called Sure Success Business Cards and Desktop Publishing. So it's even kind of before graphics, right? And you would know this, Aldus PageMaker. It's this program that was bought out by Adobe years later, but it was just laying out newsletters. And so I was working at the Lethbridge Lodge, and then over to Save on Foods, and I would do a monthly newsletter for the staff. And so I would get on this computer there, and you do this layout, and very archaic back then. But one of the main businesses I did was I'd lay out business cards. I mean, how you make a business on that? But it's actually quite busy. Going around to different businesses, saying, do you need a business card? Sat with them, designed up their business card. And then
it's a big part of marketing back then, though, right?
And then I'd had a wholesaler that I'd go to, and they would print these business cards, or to my aunt's print shop, local print shop that she had. And so that was the first thing, this little business card and desktop publishing. And then from that point, I started working with Bruce Redman, an absolute incredible guy that owned Copy Express.
Okay.
And from that point, Copy Express was closed down for a short time. He had retired, and I went and worked for someone else for a while. And then I thought, you know what? I'm going to go back and do this and open this up myself. And so I'd contacted Bruce and said, you know what? I said, I'd like to use that name. It's going to be a different business. We're going to have a little bit different as far as some of the things that we do. But, I'd like that name. And he was pretty proud to be able to have that because it started back in the early 80s. And so
it was had been around for a while then. Okay.
Yeah, early 80s. And matter of fact, I'm coming up 30 years since I've kind of, I guess, I'd say reinvented Copy Express or just continued with Copy Express, whatever you look at it. But it's been coming up 30 years that I've had that, and amongst other businesses. I had a limousine company, for example. We had a spa and a salon, a few different things. And I had actually 2 print shops at one time and down to one currently, and that's the only one. I've kind of divested of everything. And
But so did you own more than one at the same time?
Yeah. I had the 2 print shops and the salon and the limousine company all at once.
Okay, this is good then, because now I'm curious. Okay, how do you manage more than one business with with the limited time that a person has? Like, how do you balance? What were the challenges? Maybe what were some of the successes that you kind of came out with?
Good people, good staff. I'll tell you what, Levi, it's there's something to say about listening to staff and their ideas.
Yeah.
And just having incredible staff, and not only that, an incredible spouse. Family was huge in this, and I know my wife, she knew the drive that I had for business, and so respected and was always behind me 1,000%. Because there's many birthday parties and evening events and stuff if I was hopping in a limo and I was called to go out to Kelowna, for example, and that was one in particular I remember. And I missed this important event, but you need to do what you need to do to support a family. And so there's a lot of times where local business, and I tip my hat, especially during this COVID time, on how difficult business was, because you're in there 20 hours, sometimes literally 20 hours a day. And that sounds crazy, but truthfully, you could be that long to try to make this business work so it wouldn't fail. And whether it's from COVID or not, or just a business that's struggling, there's a lot of time, and a lot of people, outside may not see the amount of time. It's like, you're a business owner. You can go away whenever you want. You make a ton of money. You hear the story all the time, and yet you're pretty focused on your business for sure.
Yeah. Well, I feel like people maybe not everybody, I shouldn't paint it like that, but I feel like people assimilate the word corporation negatively, because it's always assimilated to, I get it, like an Amazon or, Walmart. And not that I'm throwing shade at them. I'm just saying, that's not the typical small business owner.
Absolutely.
They're not flying in a jet. They're not.
No. That would be nice.
But let's be honest. Actually, those CEOs probably work harder than even the small business owners do.
Well, they're not. They're not at home. They're on that plane because they need to get to the next meeting that much quicker. So it's all at just different levels of where you are within business. But there's not many CEOs, I would dare say, out there that aren't focused on, of course, creating the best in their business that they possibly can, which takes, flying around the world and doing these things. And yet it's not a lap of luxury, I'll tell you what, because a lot of these folks, you got to remember, they're away from their family. They're away from, and people say, well, they make X amount of dollars. Yeah, you know what? Money isn't everything. Yeah. Money is not everything. It's that balance that you have to have from both work and life balance that's so important. And, but no, you've had business for a long time. There's a lot of not easy days. No. Probably more of a lot of not easy days than there are great days. However, staff, I'll go back to that, staff and family and the support that you have, the support network. If it's not just your immediate or those that are working for you or immediate family, it could be friends that, just keep going. You got this. And
even just handling your emotions.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's been probably the biggest lesson I've gotten. Mm-hmm. Outside of those, all the things you said are important.
Yeah.
But how to emotionally handle the roller coaster of owning a business and the challenges that come, and how you internalize those problems, and what you do with whatever you're faced with, in a way that you're not freaking out.
Right.
and freaking out even externally, right? Where it becomes like that chaos. I can't even say how many times I've had like one of those, situations where you're like,
Yeah.
what am I going to do? Like, this is the end of the world.
Yeah.
And, your mind is racing. You're sitting in bed at night going like, this could end my business. I have no idea like what's going to happen. And then you literally just wake up the next day and you're like, you know what? Like, just keep moving forward, take another step. And it generally turns out fine.
Not with a lot of challenges.
It doesn't mean that you don't have to figure things out, but it's like, if you just stay, calm, and work through, the issues and actually listen, because that's oftentimes like, I don't mean to swear, but my business partner always says like people in business believe their own bullshit.
Yeah.
And my takeaway from his comment on that is like, we get it in our own heads, right? And we start believing our own, just our own ideas without sometimes listening to like why that deal may have failed. Yeah. A person could be like, that customer sucks. And, I can't believe that they canceled on me or they didn't buy from me or whatever. And it's like, but if you just listen, it could have been, 10 different things that you could have adjusted.
That listening is so important, right? God, you mentioned that during the campaign, and I'm sure you know him. He's an absolute champion within our community. He runs the food bank. His name is Bill Ginther.
Okay.
And something that I'd always remember every time, because you go to all these different debates and you're always hearing everybody's speech the same thing each and every time. You can pretty much reiterate, every single speech. However, one thing that he said that really, stood out in my mind throughout the campaign run is he got up and in his speech, he says, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should listen more than we speak sometimes. And you know what? It's true.
It is.
You mentioned that. And because there's so many great ideas from if it's a staff member, if it's a family member, if it's a business colleague, if it's just anybody that comes in and says, hey, you know what? If you do this, I think your business will be more successful. We need to listen more because it's out there. It's important, right?
And I think you can build better business relationships that way. I know something I've been trying to do recently, which I would share for advice with any entrepreneur to just try, because it's crazy how much business people want to support each other.
Oh yeah.
And something I found has been really successful in just meeting and having a better understanding of what you're working on has been honestly just reaching out to a business person and saying, hey, I'm working on XYJ that's intended for like your industry. I was just wondering if I could sit down with you for like 10, 15 minutes and see if you can uncover some gaps in my presentation, what I'm working on. And I can't tell you how many people have been like, yeah, come like sit down and they're helping you understand like, oh, well, maybe your price is too low or maybe your price is too high, or, what if you included this into it? And if you just listen, all of a sudden you're going to come up with like an actual product or service that people really want to buy.
Yeah. No,
instead of just being like, I've got this bright idea. It's like, just test it softly with local, leaders in business, and they will sit down with you.
And they do support, you're right, Levi. Businesses really support other businesses. And it reminds me of a time I was in a downtown and I'd been in the print shop for a few years at the time, and we had the salon as well, and it had the limousine service, and there was many a times that it would get to the end of the month and because trying to support the family and we didn't have maternity leave, for example. Like my wife was back a week after, standing behind a chair before she was into nursing and cutting hair within a week after, and the baby would come next door because we had their businesses side by side and would be either in a walker or on my chest as I was at the print shop going around, and so they grew up with us in business. But I remember at the end of it was a few times that this had happened, and it got to the end of the month and didn't have the dollars to pay the lease. Literally didn't have the dollars, and I had an incredible landlord, and I said, you know what, I will, you're going to get this, don't you worry. And I'd go collect bottles, like literally from my family members. Can you believe that? It's somewhat embarrassing to say,
no, that's not embarrassing. That's inspirational.
But I did whatever I could to make it work. And the reason I go into to listen to how businesses support other businesses, I had someone come in, and I was really pretty down, and I opened up to this business owner we were doing some work for what was happening. and the next day, I had a check dropped off.
Wow.
Like beyond the work that we did for him, but to just, don't worry, get this back when you can. And he dropped it off so I could cover some of these payments. And I'll tell you what, I sat there and I pretty much sobbed. I'll be very honest with you.
Like,
I was like, it was so powerful.
That's emotional, just you saying.
But it's a business helping another business, right? And I had it, I think it was 3 weeks. I had it paid back because I didn't want to have to, I was too proud.
Oh, sure.
However, man, but there's business helping business. And that's why going back, it's not easy being a business owner.
No.
If you see the background of, I couldn't hire a bookkeeper because you can't afford to do it. So then you have to do it. But that's extra hours of the week. You couldn't do this. You couldn't do. So it's a struggle. But rely on business and other business owners and I mean I've got so many mentors out there that help me to get to where I am.
I love that.
And I'm happy to be in, like you say, coming up 30 years with the business I had. And the other ones I was fortunate enough to sell as well.
Is it this year that Copy Express then celebrates?
I think it would be in 2025.
Nice.
So next year will be 30. I got to check. I'm going in to see when my actual license was pulled because we kind of had a transition time there. So, but yeah, it's coming up 30 years, which is pretty exciting.
That's crazy.
You've got how many years here? I mean, my gosh.
Well, Outrageous as a whole actually at the end of August celebrates 30 years.
There you go. I remember working with it.
Yeah, I've only owned it since 2008, but
2008. Look at that.
But yeah, I actually said that the other day to myself, and I was like, 2008. 2008. I'm like, that was actually quite a long time ago. That's embarking 15 years, give or take.
Yeah.
Yeah. 16,
amazing.
16.
And everything has been just sunshines and roses, right?
Yes, every
like
day.
everything has worked fine. You've never had those late nights, Levi. You've never
It's actually funny. I'll share a fun story. I got a chance to speak to a financial guy recently, and we were talking, and I said how disappointed I was that I wasn't taught at a young age, just like real good financial literacy. Mm-hmm. And I was like, I've never invested. I don't have RRSPs. Like I never did any of these. My parents didn't teach me anything about that. Which I'll talk about in a second, maybe. But really, he actually kind of like brought it down to earth for me. He goes, you know what, Levi? Some people have a job and they invest in their pension or whatever, their pension plan. They're investing in an RRSP. Maybe they're making investments in the stock market. He goes, you're just investing in your business.
Yeah.
He goes, so what if you don't have those things? Like, you're investing in your business that hopefully one day you get to pass the torch, and that will be your payback.
Yeah.
So you may not have the RSP component and all these things, but you're building a strong foundation towards your retirement nonetheless. And I was like,
it's a good point.
I honestly didn't consider that, and it is a good point. So the same struggles, right? You invest in the stock market. There's ups, there's downs, there's crashes, there's bubbles, there's whatever, and that's actually investing in your business just the same, right? It's like
it is.
One day you wake up and you're on cloud 9, and the next day you want to hide under your pillow.
It's true, totally true.
So I'm still outside of people. When you said people, when you kind of were managing like the multiple businesses at once, like you said, listening to ideas, like listening to staff ideas. But did you have to create though like a framework around that? Like,
well, it was pretty lackadaisical. Like I tell you what, it was because when I went to school and I'm a huge supporter, both my kids as well, and I pushed them to get an education, the importance of that. And my wife went back to school when we had 2 kids and is a nurse now. And so I tell them, don't take the path that I took. I says, I'm proud of what I have done, but the hindsight of, I got into college and I was taking business law and accounting at the college at that time, Lethbridge Community College, and it's made a few changes now. But I was taking business law and accounting, and even then I just wanted to get out, and I just wanted to get out working. And I think hindsight, I would have stayed longer to get a better base for business, because I'm thinking that it would have, the first few years of building a business may have been shortened had I did a little more when it came around to some of the accounting structures and how that all fit, and just some the legal stuff. And not that I run an illegal business, but just what you did to build a business and to actually build that, as you say, framework. I didn't do that. It was kind of by the seat of the pants, and it would change on a regular basis. And so I think if I was to go back, that would be one change I would probably do is maybe finish not just a couple semesters of college here and some of those, but to actually finish off and get either if it's a diploma or a degree in business, because it probably would have helped me moving forward. And I can't say it for sure would have.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm a very entrepreneurial person, I thought, and I thought at that time, and I still believe that, I'm in for over 30 years with business. I would hope that there would be something behind that, although not always rosy. So, but I think that framework is important to build, and I didn't do probably enough of that. I had it in the mind, but I almost think that to put that down on paper probably would have served better than just keeping it up here, right?
I like that. I don't know if you'll agree or disagree with this one. I wish I would have learned earlier on about actually not bank money, and how many people there actually is out there that are looking to invest their money in startup opportunities.
Oh my gosh!
People out. And it's private money that you may not be able to get funding initially at a bank for, and you're sitting there going, I'm never going to get this off the ground. There's probably somebody out there, like, you'd be surprised if you just asked around a little bit. That would likely be a loan opportunity for you from a private component.
Absolutely, because they're in business.
Yeah.
They see business, and if you've got the idea and you're a hard worker, and they see that in you, they'll invest in that idea and that person, because they may have the trust in you. And so, no, absolutely. I've always encouraged people. It says, if you want to start a business, don't think forever. Do it.
Yes.
And you know what? They're not always going to flourish right away. We've heard. I mean,
heck, they may
everyone
fail.
says they're in the red for many of them for many years before they turn to the black. And so you've got to start to really put those ideas you've got. If they're great ideas, it'll happen. And as you said, not all of them make it. There's going to be ones that fail, but pick up and do something else. Like I saw a stat here, and this is I saw Bloomberg the other day, and one of the stats is that 90% of all multimillionaires and that have started different businesses, 90% of them have been bankrupt 2 times in their life. Think about that for a minute. 90%. Don't know what the data. I don't have this is just what I had heard, and if he is true, but I can actually see that is because you have an idea that's really focused, and it may fail down, but then you've got another one, and you go with that, and so I believe that it's sometimes it's not, business isn't easy, but you'll find that click, and it'll work for you. Yeah, and so
even so, you don't have to lean on the Bloomberg side. You watch Shark Tank.
Oh yeah.
How many investments are made on Shark Tank that fail?
Oh yeah. A huge percentage.
Percentage.
Yeah.
But the percentage that end up winning, even though it's a very small percentage, totally surpass the quote unquote bad investments, if you want to call it that. But it just goes to show that there's great entrepreneurs, there's great ideas. Sometimes it just doesn't work out. Yeah. Sometimes you're too new, or maybe not too new, too advanced. That happens.
Well, think about that.
Sometimes your idea is too ahead of the curve yet.
Oh yeah.
And
I've seen a lot of that actually. You'll have someone say, "Wouldn't it be great if X, Y, Z?" And then you'll see in 7, 8 years this idea come up, and you think, "My goodness!" It says you would have had it.
I talked to that guy way back then,
or whatever, right? But no, absolutely.
No, I've heard that. In general, what other advice do you have? Just like whether it's a startup. Just small business owners, especially around here in Lethbridge, like how do you feel what advice can you give them that you feel would just help them grow as a person maybe, or as an entrepreneur, or even as a business? Do you have anything in general that is kind of like some key advice pieces that you learned over the 30 years of running your home?
Yeah. You'll have long-term staff if you treat your staff well. And I hope, I mean, I've had some extremely long-term staff that is one of the reasons is I've always built the business around advice that they've had, and because I'm not in there the day-to-day operations, obviously as of late, and I've got a lot of trust in the staff that I have, and they do an amazing job.
Okay.
And so I think trust with the staff that you have, listen to the ideas they have, and just get out and peddle your business. It's a different world now, and we've talked about this before on how social media has really changed so much of business and where your advertising is, and how do you market your business? And one of the best marketing things in your business would be word of mouth.
Right.
Someone will go to your business if a friend tells you, beyond just saying, we're wonderful, come and see us.
Yep.
So treat your customers with the utmost respect. And when they say that the customer is always right, they may not be, but they are.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
They need to go out of there, and you need to treat your customers with the utmost respect. And that's something that I preach to my staff.
Yep.
And they do a great job, because I hear it on a regular basis. Oh my gosh, Blaine, I know you're not in there a lot, but your staff are absolutely amazing. So that word of mouth, if you think of someone is treated well, a lot of times they don't tell a lot of people, even though it's a great thing and they're very happy, but treat someone poorly and think of how that spreads. How it's roasted on a regular basis. And I hate to even think that roast and toast in the mind, but it does. It's that bad news travels very quickly. So you really need to focus on the customer and de-escalate if there's a problem out there. And I've been fortunate again with staff and be able to reach out to someone that might be frustrated when they leave my business, and be able to reach out and have a conversation with them, and really, that customer is always right. And I know I've said before, even though they're not right, they're right.
Right.
Because sometimes it's like, well, actually, that's so not true. However, you know what? Thank you very much. If you agree to disagree, that's well, but de-escalate that. Work with your customers.
Well, you don't know what kind of day they're having either.
You don't know. And I've had that. And it's a good point. Call up after. I was having a really rough day. I got a flat tire here, and I was late picking up the kids here, and I really took it out on your staff. Can you please let them know? I will reach out as well and apologize, but I wanted to say it. So that does happen. It's not like, you were. It's like, thanks so much for that. I think kindness goes such a long ways. Let's go back to the basics as we talked when we started, right? Kindness goes a long ways.
I agree with that. I've been part of a networking group recently, which I was against initially. I really was. I was really against it. I had created my own blurred. Well, again, I was believing my own bullshit. But a piece of advice that I've been learning to give lots of people in these groups, especially because most of them are solopreneurs or like smaller businesses, is not being afraid of sales. I've heard from a lot of people that like these same business people are like, oh yeah, I'm not a salesperson. I'm just good at customer service, or I can do this product well. And I'm like, no, sales isn't it's not a dirty word.
No.
You have to remove the dirty word from whatever you've concocted with sales. Sales is about listening, and sales is about helping guide someone with good information or education so that they can come to a logical conclusion.
Totally agree.
And if you can help them do that, whether or not they end up buying from you at that point, like that's sales. But
sales, if you remember, the point of contact, sometimes the first sale the first conversation doesn't create a sale, nor does the second. Oh. How many of them are on that third? So you've left
even more than that, 7, 8.
So you've left it in there. And then when you think of, it's time to go buy a car, for example. Hey, I talked to this guy. And you know what? I wasn't ready a year and a half ago, but I'm ready now.
Yeah.
And he put that into my...
Touch points. Yeah. But also asking, and that was where I was going with it, was as I've met a lot of them, I even had a conversation recently where we talked about what their business did. And I said to the guy, I said, great. I said, like, how could you help my business? And he gave me a little explanation, and then he told me how much it would cost. And I said, great, let's do it.
And he's like, wait a minute, is that all?
No, and he didn't know what to do. And so fast forward, I didn't say anything, right?
Yeah.
But like 3 weeks have gone by.
Yeah.
And he hasn't reached out. And it wasn't because he has bad customer service. He's not used to just like someone being like, yeah, let's do it. And he hasn't even set up a process in his mind even of like what it looks like to just, okay, they said yes, like let's book it. What's the next step? Do I book a meeting? Do I book an onboarding? Do I, whatever it is, right? Yeah. He hasn't even created that. And so I'm excited to chat with him tomorrow and be like,
again, it goes back to business, helping business, right?
Yeah.
And
just listening, but not being afraid to like ask for the sale, or ask how you can help someone. It doesn't have to be like sleazy.
Yeah.
And that's why I say I feel like people get fixated with sales being like a sleazy thing. And it's like, no.
No, it's not, that's what makes the world turn. Yeah. Like, come on, let's face it. It's sales. You've got to, if it's not a product, it's sale of yourself and your ideas. And so it's sales is life. Yeah, well, you're doing that on a regular basis.
Even at the city level.
Right.
It's all sales.
I've got to sell an idea to my colleagues if I've got a resolution or a motion coming forward.
To the residents?
Well, what do you mean? He says, for them to vote on it, but also I brought something from the residents. Now I'm selling it to my colleagues, and here's why it's beneficial. And then the feedback of, oh, I didn't think about that. So I might go back to the community member that had asked you this and get more information. So you're a salesperson all the time, to be honest with you. My kids do it. And your kids, I'm sure, growing up, they're selling you on, I need this for this reason. Gosh, there's sales.
I want a Slurpee, right? And it's like, you can't have it. It's like, well, Dad, Oh, that's too funny.
So good.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a question, and we can cut this out if you don't want it in there.
No problem.
It's going to go back to that financial literacy.
Yeah.
And I know it's not necessarily your wheelhouse per se, but as I talked to a few financial people, I actually did get, I don't know if agitated is the right word, but how do you feel like there's a way we can get that into at least a grade 10 level? And again, we can cut this out. This is just you and I talking. Because I talked to a few of them, and it was funny. They all said the same thing, and I threw an idea out to them that I don't think they had thought of at the time. But everyone's like, we would love to give a class in a calm class or something,
and without having to go through a full
and they were told
semester or whatever, right?
And they were told, you know what, we can't do that because you could benefit from it, and so the one guy said, well, I'll remove all marketing materials, like I'll brand everything.
Yeah.
But then I can still teach it. Yeah. And they said, no, again, people might recognize you, and you might benefit from it. And initially I got upset. And I was like, well, guys,
everyone's going to
why don't you just supply it?
Yeah.
Can we just supply it to the teacher unbranded? If you honestly have no... nothing to gain initially. How about we just supply that material? And anyway, I went back to like my high school years, and I was like, I don't ever recall someone realistically just talking for 1 hour about setting yourself up for a little bit better financial growth for yourself.
They had, and I remember in school, we all had to take in grade 10 a class that was called comms.
Yeah.
So from my understanding and talking to my kids, that they don't have, similar to what I mean, they might have a comms class or whatever, but you had to take it. It was a requisite to take this. And what it did is it had different life skill things.
Okay.
So if it's financial planning, small little segments, if it was... how to run a business if someone was business minded, how to, I guess the main thing that I saw was set up a budget. Like if you're making X amount of dollars and you've got here's are your bills, how does that, I don't believe exists anymore.
Right.
And to get that back to kids, I think I say kids, it should be for so
Yeah.
many more people on just the basics of life skills. Because you can be book smart, but there's also a life smart part, and I think you need both of those. And I mean, I'll never, not against book smart or one or the other. However, I think life skills and that life smart is of importance too.
Right.
But they don't have that. I don't believe they have that.
Yeah, and anybody I've talked to that I haven't heard anything like. My idea was more around really teaching people like the compound interest component.
Oh my gosh, hey, isn't that something?
Because,
like what you end up
because
paying
really
at
it's
the end
about
of,
time.
Yeah.
You know, what I've learned at a very late age, or what I consider to be a late age, like it's time. If you could have started putting away $50 a month when you were, 16, at least into some plan. And
it's not $50 a month times however much you're alive. It's that interest, that compound interest over time, and what that would make.
And I was just teaching my stepson about it. He's a hard worker. He loves to work. And so we discussed about putting a budget into literally just like an investment vehicle through an RRSP account, right? And he can only do that for right now, right? Because he's 16. So RRSP for a couple of years, and then once he turns 18, it can go into a more investment vehicle. But by doing what he's doing and taking right now, like he doesn't spend hardly any money, right? He bought his own little truck, and he's super excited about that. And outside of that, he's frugal, so he's saved. And if he takes a really small portion of his money right now, which I'll brag a little bit. He managed to save about $20,000 over the last couple of years working on a farm and doing stuff. So really proud of him. And then he bought his own vehicle and he paid his own insurance. And but we said, hey, if we can take $2,000 a year, right now, put that into one of your RRSP plans. You're going to do that till you're 18, and then at 18 you're going to supplement that, so that there's $10,000 in, let's just call it a standard like S&P 500 type investment, right? Very modest and safe.
Modest,
But just on historical values, if he does nothing else ever again and just leaves that 10 in there, he'll have about $1 million+ in a retirement fund. Now add in CPP and the smaller amounts that you're going to get when you get to older age, like,
and a full other pension you may have in your employment.
Now you've actually built some like sustainability for your retirement, and that's what I mean. That's the stuff that I was like, it's not sexy, right? It's not like when you're young, you're not thinking about retirement, and you're not thinking about necessarily all these other things that we think about at our age. But
of course,
but I think there's something to be said about finding a way to like include a little bit more of that financial literacy back into the education system.
There's so many things. I mean, it's just me personally, things that they don't have that they should have, and things that they have that, in my opinion, shouldn't have. But that's a whole topic for another day. But I'll tell you this: it's just basic life skills. Something that I've seen that has just been amazing, and it's only been in the last few years, is some of the trades and how students are able to get into the trades in like grade 10.
Right. Now,
they start this, I'm kind of trying to remember the program is at the college. I'm embarrassed that I can't remember, but it's so they start before in high school. And you don't wait until you're graduate before you go in and get this trade. RAP, that's it, the RAP program.
That's what my son or my stepson.
Absolutely. I've never seen something so well put together. Then that skill is taken to the college after, and you're already getting a trade so quickly. And not only that, I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of students is, I know what I want to be in grade 10. I'm going to be a heavy duty mechanic. My dad was or my friend, or maybe they're not, but it's something I want to do.
Taking over a parent's business.
Then get into that right away as soon as you can, because you know what? There's some courses that don't fit in line with that goal that you want to do. You're all going to have to get all the credentials to graduate, of course. But to be able to focus on that before, that RAP thing is absolutely astounding what they can what they can do and how many students have gone through. And not only that, they stay within our community, right? And so, I mean, I was out at Southland Trailers. They do an absolutely amazing job of hiring so many different trades within our community. And many of those are kids that have gone through this RAP program. So, I mean, to tip the hat to something that is so, someone had an idea, someone had a thought, someone sat down at a table and said, you know what, and listened to probably what a student said. You know what, I like school, but I got 2 more years of this. Is there a way that they listened, and now this program's out there that is absolutely amazing.
I can tell you, my stepson loves it. Like,
so he was in, okay, that's great.
And this is how he's also been able to work and get credits.
There you go.
And so he literally, you know, obviously this wasn't available when I was in school. Yeah. There was a component, but not like this.
Yeah.
But yeah, he literally goes to school for the morning, and he heads to a construction site and works till 5 o'clock. And beyond just having a job, like the character it's built for him, the sense of responsibility, independence, because again, like he's showing his capability. Yeah. So he has a bigger leash, right?
And he's got to focus. He's got, you know what it does to his own self.
Yeah.
He's got a better respect for himself. He's out there. He's doing what he wants to do. And I think they need...
And you earn respect for money.
Oh my gosh.
Because
and to be able to save, like you said, because now he's out there and he knows what it takes. I know when I was growing up, we had, I mean, there's 6 kids or family, and it was something that it wasn't always, we didn't have much. Yeah. We lived pretty modestly, and anything that I had to, for example, for a bicycle, I would have to earn half. Dad would put in half, or Mom would put in half, or whatever that looked like. But it was because trying to teach a value of work, the value of savings, as your son has done, the value. I don't know if we've got that.
Even the value of the failure part, like from simple sides. I remember, like you, I mean, I had a paper route when.
Oh yeah,
I was like 8.
Yeah, ditto. Yeah,
you know,
yeah, totally. I delivered to Lethbridge Herald back at Spar. Like that was my first job. Yeah.
So I remember those things, like at that young of age, being out, you know, especially in the wintertime, that was miserable. But again, it was your money. It was you're building your own character, your own routine, your own accountability. But even like recently, you know, my youngest wanted to have like a little lemonade stand outside. Fine. So, the importance of it. And she came back in and she goes, I only sold one. And I got $3. And I was like, good for you. And she's like, but it was only one. And I said, well, maybe another day, right? Maybe another day I'll have 2. And so,
I make it when I see these, and if I'm driving by them, thirsty or not, these kids, I am stopping because to get out there and to do that is... I remember selling I was working on my grandma and grandpa's farm and we'd go down there for summer times because Spartan is down in Jaffrey, and we'd sit on the side of the road and we'd sell. And this is Highway 3, right? Yeah. Going through Jaffrey. They had apple trees and stuff, and so we'd crush these apple things, and we'd make fruit leather. I probably was the worst thing on the planet, right? We liked it. And we'd sit on the side of the road, and cars would pull over. And this is a busy thoroughfare. Yeah. But, you know, if 1 or 2, and one day you might have 2, next day you have 4 or 5. And I think back to, they did probably what I like to do now. I wasn't going for the fruit leather. I saw someone with drive and determination, and kids that were, you know what, are trying to.
You're injecting positivity into that,
and the smile on their face when you leave, and they go, like they're like amazed that someone had stopped. Again, let's go back to the kindness and respect and compassion and stuff that I think we lack a lot of nowadays.
We have, yes, I agree.
We put that into business in general.
I agree. I think we've well, maybe even that through COVID. Like even in my neighborhood.
Do you know your neighbors?
I do, thankfully, but again, because of my outgoing nature, I would say if I wasn't the way I was, I wouldn't.
And I say that because it's different before, and I've been in the house that we're in now for, 25 years, and do I know them to see them? But do I know them well? No, and you know what? I'm embarrassed to say that. These are they're incredible folks.
Yeah, sure.
I think I've got the best neighborhood on Lethbridge, but that's another story. But really, I know them. They're supportive. You're out there, you're chatting, but do you really take the time to I want to have a neighborhood, a block party. Remember those back in the day? They still have some, but he says, and I had mentioned that last week to one. I says, we got to get a block party. That would be, everybody wants to do it.
Yep.
But it's like, okay, let's be that first one. Let's get on this and do this, right? And so, it's again, I think we go in and we close the door to our houses and we've got, another life because we've come from two different jobs. We're burnt out. We come inside and it's just like, oh, I just got to sit down and maybe grab a bite to eat and I'm to bed because it's a different world than it was many years ago. And so we don't spend as much time, working in the garage, chatting with neighbors and stuff. And I know it's a different world. It really is, Levi. It's a totally different world.
Like people pull into their driveway, the car goes immediately into the garage or what
it comes down.
And it's like, where is everybody? I know with my wife, we talk about it all the time. We're like, our kids spend a lot of time outside.
Yeah.
Mostly,
which is good.
Mostly from force, but they do enjoy it, right? They're scooter and biking, whatever. But at least in my neighborhood, it's funny. Like we know there's families. Mm-hmm. You rarely see them out. We rarely see the kids out playing, or just enjoying a bike ride or going on their scooter.
Digital world's changed it so much.
Playing with a basketball or anything, right? The digital world has changed, and I think there's something to be said. The world changes, and the world does adapt, but that also creates like a barrier because now your kids aren't like interacting with each other, which is kind of a way where you'd be like, hey, like my kid likes your kid, and your kid
hey. No, it's true. It's true.
But outside of that, to answer your question, I'm fortunate enough because I'm very friendly with people.
Yeah.
That most of the neighbors, there's obviously a couple that maybe we are more just hi.
Yeah.
But most of them, I at least take the time to sit, and even if we're just passing, I'll walk up to them and just have at least a 5-10 minute conversation to chat and what's going on and how are your children, and because you never know, right? That you're looking out for each other at the end of the day.
And then looking for that conversation sometimes too. I know I had one of our bins because Lethbridge is sometimes windy, as you're probably well aware. I had my recycle bin and was blowing down like 15 doors down. Well, those are people that I literally don't know that well. You'd know to maybe see them if you're driving by, but someone had brought back this bin. I didn't know where the bin was. I seen this gentleman come back and drop it off, and we started a conversation. We were there for probably an hour and a half, just chatting. And how long you been here in this neighborhood? We've both been here as long as, over 20 years, and didn't get a chance to really chat. And so we just need to, I think, get out of sometimes our cocoon and
just say yes.
And just say yes. And
just say yes to those get-togethers and those connections.
And once you have one, then you're it just is that icebreaker. And I can't stress that enough. Going back when we first started about it's just that kindness and respect, and you just do that in general. If it's in business or in life or anything, right?
That is definitely the theme of this chat has been kindness, compassion, just trying to be there for each other in some capacity and learn from each other.
Well, that's what I leave on my monthly column that I do with the Lethbridge Herald, and if you've seen it, the very last sentence is always just be kind to one another.
Yeah.
It's some people might think it's so small, but it's such a big thing to me that I just think our world would be so much different. Yeah. And I'm talking not even our community or our country, but think worldwide if kindness would do. We've got wars and rumors of wars and this all over the place. And I think if we were just kinder, and I know that everyone goes, well, that's not going to save the whole world being kind, but you know what? It does start somewhere.
And no, I think kindness and positivity are
positivity,
a huge.
And you can't be positive without being kind. I don't think, anyway. Myself.
No, I agree, and that's why I say you just have to. Yeah, I mean, maybe actually, I would challenge people to be more thankful.
Yes. Grateful and thankful. 100%.
Because sometimes I feel like in North America, for sure, as someone who experienced Central America, I feel like sometimes, I'm not painting a broad brush, but just saying, I feel like not enough people are thankful with what they have here. Oh. Even if it feels like you're struggling, man, compared to
You
you
got
got be thankful that you're struggling here.
You got a really good point. I was talking to someone that was from a war-stricken country that was over here, and I said, "What are you grateful for?" And they said, "To not be woken up throughout the night with bombs going off."
Right.
We just take that for granted.
Right.
It's just something that, and I looked at her and I thought, "Wow." I says, "That's like." Seriously, that's everything. Or down in South America when I was in Brazil and I'd asked her, I said, what do you want Santa to bring you? And it was a bottle of my own shampoo. Like, what does that cost? A couple bucks, $3, $4, well, now it's probably $10, $20. But you know, here it's like a car, an Xbox, or a this. So
and even from a city component, it's like, we want the fountain turned on, and we're gonna, and it's like, man, just be thankful we have the pond.
We have
we have the park that surrounds it. Like, we can't win every battle every time.
There's so much you can do better, but we got to be grateful for what we have.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we lack that. And I'm speaking myself too. I really think that there's so much more that I can say that I'm grateful for, but we get caught into our rigorous lives and we don't focus on things like this, right?
It's true, Blaine. Well, I know I don't want to keep you too long, but
it's been a great chat. Oh my gosh, that's a great chat.
It does go fast, man.
Good. Yeah.
I want to thank you. Honestly, this comes from the bottom of my heart for your business leadership, for your kindness, your compassion, for your political leadership, and yeah, man, I personally think you're an inspiration.
Oh, geez, thank you.
I've learned an enormous amount from you and people like you. And I'm just fortunate that I get a chance to actually even have a sit down and that you're part of this conversation and helping others learn. So I can't thank you enough, buddy. I honestly can't.
I'd absolutely love to do it again. This is a great time. And, as we have conversations, we think of things that, you might not have if you don't sit down and chat. And thank you for the invitation. It's awesome. To be able to sit down and chat about these things. And I think more of these conversations need to happen, Levi. So thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Appreciate you.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Thanks, buddy.